Good evening, everyone. On behalf of Mayor Ross J. Baraka and the Office of Community Engagement, we thank you for coming out to our town hall meeting here in the East Ward. And we are happy to have you here. As you know, we've been having town hall meetings in every ward of the city. Today we're here in the East Ward, and we want to thank you for being here. To start the program, I'm going to ask the representative of the East Ward Councilman Office to please come forward. Manuela Cordoso for some remarks. Councilman Amador couldn't be here today, but he sent his representative. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. On behalf of Councilman Amador, due to health issues, he's not able to be with you. However, he does send a message to do the right thing with the census. Nothing is going to make it feel like you're not wanted. And he'll be with you all the way through if you need anything from our office. We are at City Hall. So just feel free to call our office and we'll help you with any situations that you have. On his behalf, we thank you for being in the Eastward, and to Casa Ciabra. And to you, Deputy Mayor, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And we want to make sure everybody knows that the census is still hiring. All you have to do is log in the website. You go into 2020census.gov/forward-jobs. You don't have to bring a resume. You could just log in and apply. The pay is from $21 an hour to 35 hours an hour, and you could work full-time, part-time. They have all positions available, so please make sure. I'm going to repeat the website again. It's 2020census.gov/forward-jobs. We have the forms in the front. We have Patricia Green here from the Census office. Patricia, raise your hands. When we finish the meeting, if you have more questions, she'll be able to help you. We also want to thank Deputy Mayor Ligia Freitas that helped us put this meeting together. So Ligia, if you want to say a few words, you could come forward.
Boa noite. Já que essa reunião devia ser em português o máximo, só vou começar em português. Bem-vindo a todos. E a deputy que ele já agradeceu em nome do Mayor. A única coisa é o seguinte, gente. O que está aqui pode passar a voz para todo mundo, dizer que, independentemente da situação do documento, se tem documento ou não tem documento, é bom que todo mundo faça o censo, porque vai ajudar para ter mais escolas, mais hospitais, mais transporte, mais polícia, que vocês reclamam todo o tempo, não tem segurança. Então, vamos não ajudar uns aos outros e passar a palavra para poder ter esse censo, seja o máximo possível, todo mundo estar assinado ao censo. In English, good evening, everybody. And I'm glad, a few people show up. I hope, they can continue to come in. And whatever is here today, please spread the word and say to the people, independent of your situation, with the documents or no documents, please open the doors for the people, for the census, fill it up with the application, because it's going to help us to have more schools, more hospitals, more police officers, to get security for us. So help, the community, the city, and we can have the maximum people to, be on a number for the data in this census. Thank you for coming.
Thank you. I want to make sure everybody understands, when you apply for the census, you have to be a U.S. citizen, but now the census also opened the doors for people that are not residents, U.S. citizens, but have a permit to work in the United States. So, el censo le abrió las puertas ahora a las personas que no son ciudadanos, pero sí tienen el permiso para trabajar en los Estados Unidos. So if you know someone that is looking for a job, but if not a U.S. citizen, but they have a permit to work in the city, you'll be able to apply for the census, okay? Así es que, por favor, dejan el mensaje de que le han abierto las puertas a las personas que no son ciudadanos de los Estados Unidos, pero sí tienen el permiso para trabajar. Otra de las cosas bien importantes, today we're going to learn why the census is safe, it's easy, and it's important. This is the same message we give in every community that we go to, because we have to understand what the census is and why it's so important. This time you're going to get 4 opportunities to do the census. You could go on your smartphone. Everybody has a smartphone. You could just log in and do the application. You could do it in a laptop. You could do it in a tablet. And if you don't do it like that, you're going to get the form by mail and you could just fill it out. If you don't do that, then they're going to go knock on your door. What we want to do in Newark, we want to make sure everybody just grab their phone, do the application, and get counted before somebody goes knocking on your door. I don't want nobody knocking on my door. Do you want somebody knocking on your door? No, right? So what we're going to do, as soon as you get the application in the mail, which is going to start coming out on March 12th, you're going to take the form, you're going to get your PIN number, you log in, and you do your form. It's only going to take you a few minutes. Muy importante que entiendan que esta vez el censo lo pueden hacer de 4 maneras. La primera vez, el censo va a empezar a enviar las aplicaciones en marzo 12 y va a venir con un número. Ese número es el número de identificación donde usted puede entrar en su teléfono, poner su PIN number y entrar y llenar la aplicación. Lo puede hacer de su teléfono, lo puede hacer en una computadora o lo puede hacer con un tablet. Si usted no lo hace de esa manera, va a recibir la aplicación por papel, un papel, y usted lo que va a hacer es con su bolígrafo va a marcar las preguntas. Yo soy Jacqueline Kile, vivo en esta dirección, tengo mi esposo, mis hijos. Algo bien importante que están haciendo las personas es que no están apuntando a sus niños en el censo. Y eso lo que está trayendo es el problema de que las escuelas en nuestra ciudad están sobrepobladas. ¿Y usted sabe por qué fue eso? Porque hace 10 años atrás las personas se olvidaron de poner a sus niños en el censo. Así es que es bien importante que esos niños que usted tiene en su casa, que sean contados, porque si no vamos a seguir teniendo el problema de tener muchos niños en salones de clase. Y nosotros no queremos eso. Queremos tener más escuelas, más hospitales, poder contratar más policías, poder tener mejores carreteras. Y usted sabe que el fondo del censo, el fondo que nosotros recibimos federal, esos fondos son usados para esas cosas. Y el censo no le importa si usted es ciudadano, no ciudadano, si sus papeles son correctos, no importa, porque nosotros tenemos que contar los residentes sin importar su estatus inmigratorio. Porque cuando usted camine por las calles, quiere una carretera nueva. Cuando usted lleve a sus hijos, nosotros tenemos que darle servicio y clases a sus niños. Cuando usted vaya al hospital, nosotros tenemos que atenderlo. Nosotros somos una ciudad santuario, nosotros no le negamos servicios a nadie. El censo es de la misma manera. Una cosa que entiendan también es que el título 13, que es una ley, protege a ustedes. Ellos no pueden ni tienen derecho de compartir esta información con ningún gobierno, ninguna oficina de gobierno, porque es la ley. Y las personas que trabajan para el censo cogieron una juramentación donde le prohíbe compartir esa información y si lo hacen, tienen que pagar una multa de $250,000 y pueden ir hasta preso. Así que quiero que entiendan que su información es totalmente confidencial y que el censo tiene esta ley 13 que los protege. Así es que no tienen que tener miedo. El censo no comparte esa información con ninguna oficina de gobierno. Y también, porque es importante, porque vamos, esto es lo mismo, lo voy a decir en inglés, así es que, Jeff, I'm telling them, you're going to say the same thing in English, but I know there's some people that don't understand English, so I'm going to say it in Spanish this part. Es importante, ¿por qué? Porque más de $675 millones son distribuidos en los Estados Unidos. Y es por las personas que viven en la casa. Así es que si ustedes Si nosotros no contamos nuestra población, no vamos a recibir el dinero para poder brindarle todos estos servicios. Así que es bien importante que ustedes entiendan que la única manera que nosotros vamos a poder seguir echando a Newark hacia adelante es recibiendo esos fondos federales y que nuestra comunidad sea contada sin miedo. No tengan miedo, están protegidos por la ley 13. Vamos a ser contados y vamos a recibir esos fondos que nosotros nos merecemos. Porque esos fondos son de nosotros, son de sus casas, son de sus hijos, son de sus familias. Y si usted no es contado, no vamos a poder darle los servicios que ustedes necesitan. Así que si ustedes pueden compartir este mensaje con sus vecinos, con la iglesia, con las escuelas, con todas las personas que usted tenga comunicación, este es el mensaje que nosotros queremos llevarle a cada comunidad de nuestra ciudad, que entiendan que el censo es importante. ¿Estamos bien? Okay, perfecto. So now I'm going to introduce the expert of the census, which is the director, Jeff Baylor, that is here with us today, and he's going to talk more about why the census is easy, it's important, and it's safe. Please welcome Jeff Baylor from Census 2020.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. You need to get some sleep. You and Maribel work tirelessly on the census. I can't thank you enough for all that you do. And thank all of you for being here tonight. This has to be a priority for you and your communities, and I'm going to talk about why here shortly. As introduced earlier, Pat Green-Alston, one of our partnership specialists working in Newark, she is your direct resource. She is fantastic, and if you've been around, you've seen her all over Newark hosting and providing support to many of the events that the Deputy Mayor has put together. She is your direct resource for anything you need census related. Materials on that table. If you want to put them in a waiting room where you work, or you want to hang a poster in a community center or your favorite restaurant, or put some materials at your house of worship, please reach out to Pat. She can get those materials for you in language as needed, so you can share it with your community members. So I'm going to talk about the census conversation, but before I get to that, I want to reiterate what the Deputy Mayor talked about jobs, okay? Even though the census is a national event, in order to be successful, it has to be conducted at the local level. Now, we can't change the way we ask questions, we can't change the procedures, but what we can do is make sure we hire people locally to work in their own neighborhoods, who speak the languages, who understand the culture, who know what the challenges are. And we need your help in spreading the word that we're hiring for census jobs. The largest operation we conduct, we're going to hire over 500,000 people nationwide to work on about an 8 to 12 week operation. We're going to start selecting those individuals March 7th. So we're getting down to the wire, the time when people can still apply and be considered for these jobs. Again, $21 an hour, paid training, and mileage or transit reimbursement while on official duty. The best thing about these jobs, you choose your own schedule. If you want to work 10 hours a week, you want to work Mondays and Wednesdays from 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. and all day Saturday and all day Sunday, we will give you a workload to make you successful. We are not telling you these are the hours you have to work. You're telling us what hours you can work, and then we're going to give you a workload to match that schedule. So come, be a part of history. I mean, this is the largest peacetime operation we conduct in the United States. Once every 10 years, we've been doing this since 1790. Support your community. The best way to get a complete and accurate count, if we have to knock on doors, is that a local resident who speaks the language, who understands the culture, is the one knocking on the door. And finally, make some good money. $21 an hour isn't a bad gig, especially when you get to choose your schedule. Whether you want to save up for, pay off holiday bills or save up for a summer purchase, this is a great opportunity. As Deputy Mayor mentioned, 2020census.gov/jobs, that's how you apply. It's formatted for smartphones and for tablets. Deputy Mayor and her staff have recruiting events throughout the city for those individuals or community members who may not have access to internet or may not want to apply on their smartphone. Maybe they need some support or some help. we'll provide that technical one-on-one support. So please share the information about jobs in the community, okay? So where we need your help, we call it the census conversation, as Deputy Mayor mentioned. The census is safe, the census is easy, and the census is important. And we have materials that back up all this information on that table there, that please grab some before you leave. This is the foundation of what 2020 looks like, what the census is going to look like. So first off, the census is safe. Every piece of data we collect is protected under a federal law called Title 13. All right? This law was put in place in 1954. It basically states that under no circumstance can the Census Bureau release information to anyone at any time that could potentially identify an individual or a household. So when we release our data to the public, it's at a city level, it's at a county level, it's at a census tract level. It's never at a person or household level. Under Title 13, local, state, federal law enforcement can never access our data at any time for any reason. Homeland Security and ICE can never access our data at any time for any reason. The Patriot Act does not supersede Title 13. Any administration in power can never access our data at any time for any reason. We have been taken, the Census Bureau has been taken to federal court numerous times over the past 7 decades for people trying to get our data at the person and household level, and we have won every time. There has never, in the history of Title 13, ever been a breach where the Census Bureau has released information that identified an individual or a household. Okay? In addition, everyone who works on a census, whether you're a permanent employee like myself, whether you're hired for a 4-week job, 4-week operation, you have to take an oath of confidentiality, and that oath is for life. And that oath states that if you release information that identifies an individual or a household, you will be fined up to $250,000. You will be imprisoned up to 5 years. So we take this seriously. I mean, the public's trust is the foundation of a complete and accurate census. So please feel confident in telling your community members, your friends, your family, your coworkers, those that you worship with, that the census is safe. Okay? The census is easy. Deputy Mayor mentioned 4 ways to respond in 2020. Online. This is the first time ever. If you want to respond online, you can. This will also be the first time ever. If you want to call your information into the Census Bureau over the phone, you'll be able to do that as well. Both online and over the phone will be available in English and 12 non-English languages. All right? Let's say you don't want to go online, you don't want to call it in over the phone. Every household will get the opportunity to fill it out on paper. So online, over the phone, on paper, or what we call self-response. It's the highest quality data we ever get at the lowest possible cost, because the 4th and final way we'll count people is starting May 13th. We'll start knocking on doors of every address in which we have yet to receive a census response. So we need your help in getting people to self-respond. That starts March 12th, and that'll continue through the end of July. That's the time to self-respond on the census. We'll start knocking on doors May 13th. That will continue through the end of July. All right? What do we ask? This is a short form only census. Very basic information. We ask for your name. We ask for your age and your date of birth. We ask for your race and your ethnicity. We ask if you're of Hispanic origin. We ask for your gender. We ask for your tenure, whether you own or rent your home. And we ask for the relationship to the first person who's listed on your form. Mother, father, roommate, son, daughter. That's it. That's all we ask. We ask for a phone number. We have a couple reminders about overcount and undercount, just to make sure you've included everybody, or you make sure you didn't put someone on the form that you shouldn't have. But that's all we're asking. We never ask for Social Security numbers. We never ask for bank account or credit card information. and we never ask for money. There will be scams. There are every decade. People take advantage of the census being out there. So it's important to know what we ask, but maybe even more important, what we don't ask. Again, we don't ask Social Security number, bank or credit card information, or we never ask for money. Okay? So the census is easy, 4 ways to respond. Lastly, the census is important, and it comes down to 2 things, really, representation and funding. So representation at every level of government. How many seats each state has in the U.S. House of Representatives, how many congressmen the state of New Jersey has, will be based upon the 2020 census. That also ties to electoral college when we're talking about presidential races. All right? States will use this data for their redistricting, so they're going to draw their voting precincts. They're going to draw their school districts. The states will, based upon this data. Local government will use this data to determine how many seats they have in their local, whether that's Senate or at the state level, whether that's House seats, how many wards, and different things like that. So these important decisions are being made on this data. Let's make sure the data is accurate. Now, probably the biggest piece of this, the biggest selling point, is the funding that's tied to a census, okay? Census Bureau, we don't give money out, we don't create the formulas, we just give the data to other federal agencies who put it into their formulas to determine how much funding will go to your community. And we're talking for things like Medicaid, for pothole repair and transit improvements, for road improvements, for food stamps, for elderly care, for health clinics, for Title I grants, National School Lunch Program and Breakfast Program, energy assistance, critical programs to your community. Over $675 billion of federal funding is disseminated every year based upon formulas that will use the census data to determine how much each community receives in funding. So let me wrap up with this. Imagine you have a school in your community. And let's say in that school there's 100 kids. You have 100 students who go to a school in your community. And in the 2020 census, let's say only 80 of those kids get counted. For the next 10 years, that school is going to get 80% of the funding it deserves. Whether that's for new classrooms or technology or the number of teachers that are in the classroom sizes, whether that's National School Lunch Program or bus transportation, that school is going to get 80% of the funding it deserves for the next 10 years. And it doesn't just affect those 20 kids who weren't counted. It affects all 100 kids who go to that school. Now apply that to your neighborhood and what's important to you, whether that's the roads, whether that's the education, whether that's health care, whether that's elderly care. And for every person who thinks they don't need to fill out the form or they don't need to include everyone who lives in their household, that's negatively going to impact their community for the next 10 years. We get one opportunity to get this right, and we have to work together. That's why we're asking, don't just pledge to fill out your form in 2020. Also pledge to have this conversation at your place of worship, at your place of employment, with your family and friends. All of you are trusted voices. People come to you for validation and for education. And we're asking you to educate them, validate that the census is safe, that it's going to be easy to fill out, and why it's so important for the next 10 years. Again, we get one opportunity to get this right, and we have to work together in order to ensure we get a complete and accurate count. So I threw a lot out there, right? I think we have time. Deputy Mayor, time for questions? We okay?
DACA students can be hired for the census?
As long as they're eligible to work in the United States, they can be hired to work on the census.
Después que tengan permiso para trabajar aquí en los Estados Unidos, sí pueden trabajar para el censo. No, pero ahora, ok, esa es otra cosa que quiero que entiendan. Cuando vayan a la internet y dice solamente ciudadano, porque así empezó a contratar el censo, pero ahora este mes le abrieron las puertas a las personas que no son ciudadanos, pero sí tienen permiso para trabajar en los Estados Unidos. Okay.
Yeah, and let me stress, online. So we have to follow the appropriations law that the federal government puts into place. And because these are federal positions, you have to be a U.S. citizen to work. Now, within that law, there's some flexibilities, and we receive approval to use those flexibilities on the 2020 census. And basically, the flexibility is if we have a certain skill set we need, like a certain language that's spoken in an area, and we have no citizens who speak that language, we can hire a non-citizen who speaks that language. So it's extremely important that when people are applying, they include every language that they're able to speak, so that way we have the ability to hire them.
La razón por qué el censo le abrió las puertas es porque necesitamos personas ahora que hablen diferentes idiomas y que puedan traducir. Recuerden, es muchos idiomas. El censo tiene traducido, el censo va a estar en 12 diferentes idiomas, pero hay personas que hablan con dialectos y hay personas que son que necesitan otras clases de lenguaje. Ellos le abrieron las puertas a esas personas para que puedan traducir, aunque no sean ciudadanos, pero sí tienen el permiso para trabajar en los Estados Unidos. Somebody
Yes.
else?
Okay, the question was, well, how will the homeless be counted?
Yes.
Great question. So we have a whole bunch of different types of operations we do. I talked about the largest operation we conduct, the non-response follow-up. At the end of March, over a 3-day period from March 30th to April 1st, we're going to visit every mobile food van, every soup kitchen, every homeless shelter. Okay. Okay. So over that 3-day period, we're going to work with an administrator for each one of those locations and ask them, over this 3-day period, what's the best time for us to come and to count the population you serve? All right, so we'll do that. In addition, we are working right now to identify locations where those people who are experiencing homelessness who aren't staying in a shelter, let's say they're staying at some outdoor location, whether that's a tent city in the woods, whether that's beneath the overpass, behind the church, we're creating an exhaustive list. And on March 31st at midnight, we're going to have hundreds of thousands of employees nationwide go and visit every one of those sites and do a head count. So there's kind of 2 ways in which we're trying to count the homeless population. But it's a hard to count group, and it's critical for us to get them included. Yes, sir.
How do you plan on counting those that are re-entering prison program?
Yes. Okay, the question was, how are we planning on counting those that are re-entering, recently incarcerated, re-entering communities? So the census is taking a snapshot in time. All right, that's what a census is. So whether you fill out your form March 12th, whether you fill out your form July 1st, the questions we ask are, who lived at this address as of April 1st, 2020? Okay, so that's the reference point. We're asking you to think of April 1st, 2020. We have a group quarters operation in which anyone who's incarcerated as of April 1st, 2020, we are working directly with jails and prisons. We work with military barracks. We work with nursing homes. We work with college dormitories to do a special operation to count those individuals there. So if they're incarcerated at that time, they counted in the prison. That's what we do at the federal level. States have the ability, and I believe New Jersey just passed law in which New Jersey, if they have the ability to show where individuals who are incarcerated lived prior to being incarcerated, so let's say they lived in Newark and then they're incarcerated wherever that may be, at the state level, for state purposes, the state will count those individuals where they lived prior to being incarcerated. That's a state decision. At the federal level, we're going to count them in the prison, but at the state level, New Jersey is going to count those individuals, assuming they have the information where they lived prior to being incarcerated. Yeah.
Hi, good evening. In Portuguese or in English? Okay, so we're all speaking in English. I understand the whole concept of the census and the importance of it as far as representativity and security and all the funding. One thing I cannot understand is, like you said, one of the ways of filling out the application is by filling it out online. Okay. I don't know how familiar you are with our community and the situation of undocumented people. What makes you think that people are going to fill out that form willingly online? And how can we get around that? Because even though we have that law, the title that protects people, that the data is confidential, we still cannot guarantee. And I'm being like really honest. If I get hired to knock on people's doors and speak about the census with all the information that you gave me and all my understanding about it, how can I still let that person rest assured that she won't be hurt down the road? I mean, back in the day, 10 years ago, we were not living the situation that we're living in today. People were not as scared as they are today. It's going to be hard enough to knock on people's door and have that form filled out, never mind hoping that people fill that out willingly online.
Yeah.
So how would you get around that?
Yeah, so great question, and I certainly understand. We've heard it from a lot of communities, the fear of people don't trust the federal government. I totally get that. So a couple of things. First off, we talk about the safety. There has never been a breach of Title 13. Data at the person or household level has never been released since 1954 when this law went into existence. So that's one thing we talk about. There are no examples of an individual being hurt by filling out their census. Okay, so that's the one thing we like to talk about. The second thing, we don't ask citizenship status on the census. Okay, that was a question that was at one time by the administration being raised to be included. Supreme Court ruled that question will not be collected on the census. So that's important to note. It's important to know what data we are collecting. Some of the other things we talk about, we certainly understand the fear of filling things out online. That is just one of 3 ways that a household can fill it out without someone coming to their home. So if they don't want to fill it online, certainly understand. Would they be willing to call it in over the phone? Maybe not. Would they be willing to fill it out on paper? Maybe not. Yeah, absolutely. What we tell communities, if you don't want someone knocking on your door, the one way you can ensure that no one will not need to knock on your door is to fill it out online, over the phone, or on paper. Okay? Some of the things that our partners are doing, and this is, I'll go and speak anywhere, Pat will go and speak anywhere, but we know it means more when it's coming from you. So that's why we're working with trusted voices throughout the communities, church leaders, community-based organization leaders. We're educating them on the importance of the census and asking them to communicate the message, whatever that message may be. And you know, you and these community-based organization leaders and church pastors and trusted voices know your community better than anyone else. You know what message will motivate individuals. You know what message will get them to trust. So what our job is to provide you with all the tools that are available, all the different messaging, and ask you to choose the right ones that you can communicate. We understand that you may not leave here, tonight feeling confident, but all I'm asking is let us continue this conversation. Let us continue to work with you and other leaders to stress the importance, because if people don't fill out the census, they're invisible. They're invisible for representation. They're invisible for funding for their community. You think of children, a 2-year-old, the next time they can get counted is when they turn 12. Think of all the programs that child could touch over a 10-year period. And they're going to be negatively affected because they don't fill out the census. So we have to focus on those programs. So what we're doing, we're trying to find those trusted voices, those church leaders, those doctors, those nurses, where this funding is critical to them. Because a lot of people don't realize some of the services they're receiving on a daily basis are tied to the census. And that's our job, is to educate them, so hopefully we can. So whether you're not convinced now, all I'm asking is keep an open mind. Let us continue this conversation with you to convince you that it is safe and show you the tools that we have available, show you the different ways it's easy. one of the coolest things that the deputy mayor and Maribel and Pat, in doing these recruiting events. So we've had libraries who've opened up their doors and allowed community members to come in to apply for jobs. We've had churches that have opened up their doors that have allowed community members to come in to apply for jobs. They're also committing to hosting counting events after March 12th, where they're going to bring their community members into a place the community feels safe, with trusted voices that they look to for education or for validation, and they're going to talk to them and help them fill out their census when they're at church or when they're at that library. To me, that's where I think this online thing opens up some doors that weren't available in the past. Because in 2010, it was just on paper. This at least allows a household to choose what they feel most comfortable with without having to get to that point where we have to knock on their door. So it's a start, but let's continue this conversation.
Well, no, I understand. I understand, I totally understand the concept and the importance of doing that. But it was just, what I'm trying to bring out is just even just knocking on the door, it's going to be hard to get done because people are scared. I understand there's no other examples of data being linked to other governmental agencies, but we've also lived through the past few years a lot of situations that we've never lived before, so people are scared, and I just think it's hard and it's unfair to assure someone that it's not going to be harmful for you, yet that's out of my hands. Regardless if I go under oath and I do not release any information, after it's done, it's done. So that's what I'm trying just to bring to the attention. Obviously, I'm here because I'm interested, and I have a lot of different friends from different backgrounds, and people are just worried. People that cannot be here, and I'm trying to be their voice as well. So being hired on or not, or just as a member of the community, that's the situation that we're facing here in Newark right now.
Yeah. And I appreciate you sharing that. Thank you.
Hi, how are you?
Good.
So I have a question. In terms of the data and so you were saying how the federal government allocates $675 billion to be allocated across the United States of America to different communities and different states. So how do we avoid having data manipulation? So for instance, every household, what measures are put in place that people are only counted once and only once? Yeah. And I asked that question just because, for instance, in 2010, when the last census was conducted, I was away at college. So now your household has 4 people, but 2 people that are part of the household are 2 young teenagers who are now adults away at college. Do they get counted in that household, or do they get counted in the, city or state that they're currently living in?
Great questions. We have some materials that talk about what we call residence criteria. So in speaking about college students, we have an undercount every census. We have an overcount every census. Undercount typically in communities of color, with renters, the homeless, children under the age of 5 are the fastest growing undercounted group we have in the nation, all right? But we also have overcount. And those are college students. Those are people who may own 2 homes. So what we do for college students is we count them. The residence criteria we put in place is to count people where they usually live or stay as of April 1st, 2020. So what does that mean? If a college student is away at college 9 months out of the year, our criteria states we're going to count them at college, not at the home where they come, their parents' home where they come back to for maybe 3 months out of the year. So you asked about, counting people once, only once, and our goal is counting people once, only once, and in the right place. So at the end of the census, after all the counting's done, through July, we have a couple quality control operations, and then we do a matching operation, and we look to match people who are duplicated in a census. So let's say I fill out the census and my wife fills it out, and then my daughter fills it out for a 3rd time. At the end of the census, we're only going to take one of those responses. Same thing with if we have, and we certainly understand this is an issue. You may have multiple families living in a single family apartment, let's say. We don't care that the apartment's illegally subdivided. We just care that both families get counted. It's possible that each family fills out their own census, and what we'll do at the end of the census is combine them into one unit. All right, so there's a lot of things we do on the back end, And that's why it's important that people completely fill out their census. They include their name, they include their birth date, they include all that information so we can make sure we're not overcounting, when the census is over.
I have another question.
Yeah, please.
So you mentioned that in the short form, one of the questions that's going to be asked is whether or not someone is of Hispanic origin or heritage.
Yeah.
So being that we have a melting pot here in this community of many different races and nationalities, and one of the folks here that are predominantly occupying the East Ward are Brazilians, how would you tell them or guide them to identify themselves in that short form application, being that Brazil is in South America?
Great question. We will never tell people how to fill out the race and ethnicity question. That's truly, this is a self-response activity. So we're not going to provide guidance or direction. I can tell you what other communities are doing. One of the new things this census is the way we ask race and ethnicity. So we have to follow the categories as defined by the Office of Management and Budget. So they've created the race categories. They determine there's 2 answers for gender. Okay, all federal agencies have to follow those when they ask questions on race and ethnicity and gender. But one of the new things we did is we have the normal race categories. So white, black. You have the Asian categories: American Indian, Alaskan Native, or other. So you can check any one of those 5 boxes. But under each one of those categories is a blank space for you to write in. So you can start a campaign if you want. And there, for instance, I'll just share an example of what a group is doing in the Boston area. It's part of our territory. They have a campaign called Make Portuguese Count. And they're saying whether you consider yourself white or black, that's fine, check that box, but write in Portuguese. That's something you could do for your community. Again, that's a decision that you and your community are making. It's not something that we're telling the Census Bureau, telling you how to do, because that truly is how you see yourself, your race and ethnicity. But I think the write-in category is something new that really opens up the door to making sure people get counted. Any additional questions?
Any question?
Going once, going twice.
¿Puedo en español, verdad? ¿Español? ¿En español puedo?
Sí.
Buenas tardes, mi nombre es Evelyn. Me gustaría saber si yo podría hacer un voluntariado para el censo.
Okay. So can somebody translate? I'm sorry? You'd like to volunteer, become a partner, or work? Volunteer. So one of the best things you can do is work with Maribel and Deputy Mayor Jackie. They have a complete count committee. And a complete count committee is just basically people coming together who understand what the challenges are to a complete count, and then working together on the solutions, being a trusted voice. So that would be the first thing I would say to do is, reach out to the complete count, the Newark Complete Count Committee to see if you can do something there. We also have partners throughout the city, and you could host an event, you could be a trusted voice, you could send an email out, you could post flyers or posters. All of those things are extremely helpful. What we do ask, if you do want to go door to door, if you do want to hold events, things like that, we ask if you're going to go door to door, do it before May 13th, okay? Don't knock on doors after May 13th, because that's when we're knocking on doors. And there's a lot of scams. Again, when we collect the data, it's protected, right? If you go out and you knock on doors and collect the data, that data is not protected because you're not an employee of the Census Bureau. This is how scams occur every decade. We'll get people out there who'll start knocking on doors, say they're from the census, ask some basic questions. Oh, what's your social security number? What's your bank account information? And people not knowing will give that, okay? So if you want to knock on doors, if you want to engage your community that way, invite them somewhere. If you're going to knock on their door, invite them to the local library who may be doing Maybe having a counting party. We have partners who are hosting events to invite the community to come in to be counted. You can do that. You can certainly pass out information that talks about, you know, our flyers or our one-pagers that talk about the importance of the census. That's something you can actually do. We just want to make sure the public isn't collecting data on our behalf. We're the only ones who can collect data. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
If you collected data, is it starts from May the 13th through July the 31st?
Yeah, so as far as data collection, think of the two different time frames. So the time that you can self-respond, meaning you can go online, you can fill it out on paper, or you can call it in over the phone, that starts March 12th. You're going to get a packet in the mail. You'll get a packet in the mail with the URL, the website address to go to. You'll get your specific Census ID, and a Census ID is just a 12-digit unique identifier that takes place of your address. So you go online, you enter in your ID. Let's say you lose the ID. You can still go online. You just hit the link that says, I don't have my ID, and it'll ask you to enter your address. All right? You'll get all that information as well as a list of 13 different toll-free telephone numbers, one for every language we support. So we have a Portuguese line. If you call the Portuguese number, someone who speaks Portuguese will pick up the phone and immediately converse with you, answer any questions, and then if you want to provide your information over the phone at that time, you can. So it'll be supported in English and 12 non-English languages. Yep. But all that'll be coming March 12th. So March 12th through the end of July is when you can self-respond. And again, online, over the phone, on paper. We're going to start knocking on doors May 13th, and we'll continue knocking on doors through the end of July. So that's really the time period for March 12th through the end of July is when we do all our counting.
And does that mean that when I knock on the door, if I get a job, when I knock on the door, these families and houses like that, do I need, are you going to give me a package?
Yep. Yeah, so part of the training that we do for all our employees, you're going to get a smartphone. We're going to give you a smartphone. We're going to train you how to use that smartphone. There's a special app that only people who work for us can get. And basically, it's the same questions that are online or on paper or over the phone. And you're going to ask them face-to-face, collect that information. You enter your payroll in. It's a great thing. You don't have to go in an office to work for us. You do everything. You work from home. But we will train you on how to use these. Yep. All right. Any other questions?
Hola. ¿Alguien más? A question?
All right, well, we'll be here for a little while. If you have any questions you want to come up and ask. But thank you for your time. Please, we look forward to working with you on the 2020 census. Thank you very much.
Muchas gracias.